Welcome to the Cannock Union lines. Today I want to show my plans to add a module that can be used both within the Cannock Union lines layout and as a standalone module. Hopefully that can extend to perhaps be an exhibition layout. It's going to be based on the street running line and yard that stood on Store Street in Victoria, BC until the early 1990s. In researching this project, I consulted the 3-volume Vancouver Island's Esquimault Nanaimo Railway by Robert D. Turner and Donald F. McLachlan, especially Volume 3, which covers the 1949 to 2013 period. The authors have plans showing clearly how the Store Street track joined onto the main Esquimault Nanaimo Railway via the Johnson Street station, bridge over the inner harbour, and then single track onto the Victoria West Yards and the roundhouse and yards beyond. The plans in the book also show clearly the various industries and businesses which were served by short spurs off the track along Store Street. The track itself led to the Albion Yard, which was built on the site of the old Albion Ironworks, which had burnt down in 1907, destroying quite a large area of that part of Victoria. The plan is to build one, possibly two, if not three modules at a size of 4 foot by 18 inches. The first one will cover the Albion Yard and the north end of Store Street, with a spur acting as the connection to the existing Cannock Union lines. When the module is standalone, that will become a foreshortened siding. I don't intend to build this all at once, and my plan is that each section will be built as small dioramas to give myself a chance to practice skills. Similarly, track won't be put in all at once, mainly the spur, the main line along Store Street, and one or two of the sidings in Albion Yard. Here's a view looking up Store Street towards the site of the Johnson Street station. As you can see, there's quite a rise on the street which will be difficult to model. Here we see the Capital Iron building and the adjacent buildings, including this one with ornate brickwork, which is quite distinctive. Alongside it is the former Kelly Douglas warehouse, and the concrete plinth with plants on it was the rail siding, and with a loading bay beyond. Is the former Dowell's removal and storage warehouse with its curved building showing exactly where the spur ran off Store Street. As you can see, what for the last 100 years has been a parking lot is now being developed. I've started building the first module as a 4 foot by 18 inches 9mm ply taken from an 8 foot by 4 foot sheet cut up by the timber yard. I'll add legs and cross section later. Before I start any track laying or planning, I want to remove 3 points from the existing Cannock Union lines which are causing a bit of trouble. I'll clean them up, and I want to shorten them slightly by cutting off the tails there and there where possible to make them fit better in the yard situation. They're also causing me trouble with the soldering I did to wire the frog. So at that point I'll remove this point as well, together with this one, as they're all causing me the same sort of trouble. The planned connection to the module from the Cannock Union lines will start about here and cross over onto the module. The module itself will be from roughly where this turnout is and run down the length of this side of the layout to this corner here. That's about 4 feet. Any longer and I would not be able to fit anything in the shed. Sorry, the railway room, let's get it correct. So one module will be an adjunct to the Cannock Union lines. The remainder will be when I use it as a standalone layout. Recovered turnouts that I've started to prepare following the recommendations for frog points with DCC. I've disconnected the wire that connects, get that in focus, that would have connected the movable switch blades to the frog, and we'll use that as a lead for the frog, a power lead, and separately installed connections between the movable point blades and the stock rails at the side to provide power to it. That apparently is what you do for DCC. I've not done it elsewhere. I've just put DCC in on existing DC track work and had no problems yet. The problem comes, I believe, when you are moving the switch blades and they stop part way through and create a short. What I still need to do is remove some of the solder on the frogs themselves, but I'll do that in due course. Motives to run on the module. Things like this GP38 would be typical for a period, as long as you weren't shunting any of the sharper spurs. The majority of switching would of course be done by yard locos, S3s, SW8, various things like that, and some of the CP diesel hydraulic GE 70 tonners perhaps. But me being me, I plan to extend the possibilities, and as Canadian National ran the other side of the inner harbour at Victoria and did connect with the line heading towards Johnson Street, why not have CN jointly running and serving some of the businesses? These GMD ones are typical of what CN did use towards the end of their service on Vancouver Island. Okay, they're 6-wheel bogies, which will be a bit tight for sharp corners, but we shall see. I do see a few challenges coming up. I don't know whether they're really challenges or opportunities to practice skills, but I'll take them as they come. One of the first things I've got to consider is the rise in the street as demonstrated in some of the photographs earlier. There's certain features that are distinctive, such as the elevated loading area at Kelly Douglas, which resulted from that rise. There was a similar elevated spur at the Swift Canadian meatpacking factory further along Store Street. A 1 centimetre rise is probably what's necessary to replicate it, but that might cause challenges for the switch motors. On Store Street, the number of switches were fairly indistinct to drivers travelling along that street. The gaps between rails are small and the point blades move relatively small, a small distance, which might look fine in O gauge or HO, but when you model it in N it does look rather large. So there'll be a challenge to try and hide the impact of those turnouts as much as possible. For the road surfaces themselves, I looked at various YouTube videos for ideas. I could plaster the streets, but the one that came up as interesting was by Kathy Millett, who used modelling foam, which is available from local hobby stores. With that, it gives a texture that replicates the asphalt and can be easily painted and can be fit closely to the rails. The disadvantage I later heard is that it could shrink, it could dry up, but we shall see. In the yard, the point work is closely spaced. As I've already shown, I plan to trim the tails and leads off the points that I plan to use to bring things closer together. That should give me more space for trackage to actually put the cars on. I'll plan the track in the yard properly once I get underway. I don't plan to use any modelling tools or anything like that, planning tools rather. I'll just lay the points as I think they'll look good and see how things work.